Hey guys, Luna here, and welcome back to our life. Let's just get right into it, shall we? We are making our way along, trying to reconnect with Baxter, and we joined him inside. It was tense. Against all odds, being alone in a small space with Baxter had managed to become even more awkward situation. Seated and buckled, you waited for what he'll do. Baxter asked a simple question. Could you enter in the address of where you're staying? I can drive you there. That was straightforward enough. You punched it in. Thank you. It went quiet again until he found it was on the road, past the bakery and out of the most traffic-heavy part of the city.
Well,
Jude and Scott should be pleased to hear that they will have a lovely wedding cake. You seem to go that way. Of course, Baxter would dance right around what happened without acknowledgments. I want to say you let it go, but you're gonna have to make him talk about it then. Baxter, I want to talk to you. Baxter flexed his knuckles and the perfect smile on his face twitched. You headed off his rejection before he could give it. I know you're here right now because of a client, but you can't be working all the time. You have to be done for the day. I have other work. Baxter was quick with that retort, prepared for the last time you headed him off. Then you should take a break. I'm not gonna let this go. He sighed a dramatic fashion that was entirely opposed to the forced cordiality from seconds before. There's no other way. Let us use rock, paper, scissors to decide. What? Before you could doubt the logic of playing a hand signaling game while driving or questions the maturity level with a highly professional planner next to you, he already made his move. It's going to be rock. I only choose rock. And you? Paper? At a complete loss, you held out your hand like you wanted him to shake. He didn't take your paper hand. He didn't make a fist either. But he did accept your answer.
is that fine?
Would you mind if I pulled over to have this break? No, that'll be perfect. Then we can talk. Then we will talk, I should say. Baxter shut the GPS off. He no longer knew where you were headed anymore, but he took some exit and got a place to park. It was mutually decided not to talk inside the car. It was too suffocating. The both of you wordlessly opened the doors. Outside was the same waterfront path where you saw the fireworks together. That was how he found the place to park right away. He already knew the area. You could picture it with clarity. Baxter was by your side, so much younger, so much closer to you. Under the night sky and the flash of lights, you'd been happy. You were certain he was happy then too. But that moment was over. The reality of a new present was stark under the unforgiving summer sun. Baxter was walking away from you, pointedly placing distance between you and him. He only faced you directly when he was out of arm's reach.
Ah,
Luna, what a stunning coincidence stumbling into you here, and right when I happened to be taking a bit of time off work. You finally got him talking, and it was pure sarcasm. How are you doing this fine afternoon? I'm totally fine. There's nothing wrong with me. I want to know what's going on with you. Baxter squeezed his eyes shut and pinched the bridge of his nose. Every fiber of his being, every instinct ingrained into him, insisted on escape, and yet
you need to understand.
Luna, I apologize for what happened between us. I do regret it. There wasn't the distant acknowledgement from the restaurant. His voice was strained, and his words were harsh. I'm sorry I hurt you, and I'm sorry I was unable to keep my word and have bothered you yet again. I'm thoroughly humiliated and attempted to get in your way as little as possible, although I'm unable to quit outright. I couldn't do that to Jude and Scott.
I swear.
We're both aware that I'm fully incapable of making you happy, but in 4 days you'll be to return to your life blissfully free of my presence in it. Please, tell me, what can I do for you? I simply don't know. He ended his bitter ramble on that emphatic plea. Once again, the Baxter of 5 years ago appeared in your mind. No, not the side of him you know best, who did whatever he could to leave a good impression. No, you were suddenly 18, standing in front of the home you grew up in and being told that your boyfriend flat out never wanted to speak to you again. Why hadn't you tried? What did you think would be different? Baxter didn't want solutions or resolutions. 5 years on, he'd still rather never face something or someone ever again than deal with a situation that might hurt. I want you to treat me like a human being. Fine, I will keep that feedback in mind. Ian stood coyly while running a hand through his hair. I believe nothing is going to come back of this break. Please allow me to take you home. Baxter didn't manage to hint of his usual smile, but he did restrain the acridicness into a more businesslike stoicism. Okay, great. So you returned to the car and the drive resumed. Baxter said nothing else, not that you expected him to. You pushed past mere pleasantries with him and seen the result. It was too late to go back now. That left you time with your thoughts. You had gotten a better grasp on Baxter's intentions, what was motivating him to act the way he had, but in terms of cleaning the air, the clouds had only become murkier. Things were in motion, but it was only as if you weren't going anywhere. Eventually the destination did arrive, and you were returning to the suburbs. Baxter's lined up with the sides of the road rather than pulling into their driveway. He idled with his eyes set ahead. Goodbye, Luna. There was an audible click as Baxter's unlocked the doors. You shook your head with a sigh. You got up and walked out the front door before ringing the bell. The day's plan should have been the whole rest of the group home and working on guest favors. Baxter's cars looked on the curb on your peripheries. Maybe you wanted to make sure you actually did get inside, or maybe not. You could never guess with him. You started from the door being opened.
Hey!
Hey, Luna, you made it back in one piece. Physically, sure. Emotionally, not completely. Hi, Scott. While following your host inside, you saw one last glance behind you. The road was clear. Wedding HQ was at full capacity in the living room. The supply count had doubled, no, tripled since yesterday, and most of it was candy. Presumably they had gone down the treat aisle in the local grocery store and gotten a bag of every single one. The only living human you could see sitting in the pile of goods was Jude. He lifted a hand in greeting.
Hey.
Hey. Hi, Luna.
Thanks.
You're just in time. We're making lunch. The voices of your friends carried over from the kitchen, as did the smell of hearty, fresh-cut vegetables. Fresh-cut vegetables, depending on what they are so tasty. You better save some for me. You will.
So?
How did it go at the bakery? Xavier's going to make it, and we told them everything you said about it. The bakery is nice. It should be a good cake. Thank you. It's hard leaving it all in someone else's hands, but this is gonna work. Knock on wood. Knock knock. He tapped his knuckles against his own head, chuckling. Thanks. You can help with this? Without stopping his busy work, Jude kicked a nearby bag of chocolates. Oh, sure, I can. Great, food first. Around the table and in between bites of homemade stew, Scott broke down what you missed. The actual favors were treat bags, but part of the job included creating a decorated place setter with the guest names on it. That would indicate where everyone was meant to sit at the various tables. Technically, the attendee could take the fancy display with their name, but the couple was under no illusions that anyone would actually want to. It was purely for presentation. Basically, steps consist of writing the name down in the bag, down in your best handwriting, applying decals to the basic nameplate, and filling a bag with candy, with what the person might like. When the meal was done, the full force of this party planning committee came together to tackle the trial of guest favors. No one would stop until it was done. A good chunk of the list had been checked off while you were away, and it was simple work, just time-consuming. Luckily, there was plenty of people to do it. Many hands make light work, as someone once said. Wait, that was Baxter who said it. You were almost certain. That sounded like a phrase he used. While you were there, Jude mentioned twice how you could throw some of every type of candy into each bag and call it a day without a fuss. You had to imagine neither were the first instance of that objection coming up, but each time Scott remained adamant that they should personalize the selection. If someone was coming to their wedding, they were important enough to have a treat to their tastes. Very deliberately, Cove's candy bag had been left empty until you got it back. You were assigned to do that one yourself. It was as easy as taking candy from a baby in order to give those sweets to Cove instead. In the evening, the wedding group chat popped up with a new text. Not the entirely casual, exceedingly normal update from Baxter Ward. It noted that you should meet tomorrow morning to discuss today's accomplishments and plan the next steps. During the process, some sparks flew between the allies. It couldn't be helped. Debates over which treats were best was inevitable, and those always became serious. Or, well, though you were a unified force. Then, as night fell, your team effort brought about the completion of collection. On one side of the room was a stack of stylish table settings, each with a thoughtfully compiled bag of candy sitting on top. On the other end was enough garbage to fill a dump truck. Today was going to be a hassle. But Terry and Miranda were allowed to tap out when the favors were done. It was always getting late. For dinner, takeout was ordered so nobody had to cook or clean another meal after hours of putting little favors together. No complaints there. For a little while, the three of you could pretend the work was already over for real. No one mentioned the chaos that was raiding one room away. But when everyone was full, Jude wandered back into the living room workshop. He heaved a sigh and tossed a random piece of trash into the garbage can. It was a drop in the ocean. The entire living room was a mess of wrappers, paper scraps, and undefinable crafting residue. Scott hovered nearby, his features drawn up apologetically. The light-hearted atmosphere you shared as a team early in the day had shattered. All that remained was the fractured debris, and it was beyond pre-wedding jitters. After months of planning, Jude had reached a point where he wanted the preparations to be over. He was worn down and the little victories weren't able to lift his mood. All he saw was what was still left. Meanwhile, Scott seemed only to become more invested and more concerned over how it came together as the deadline approached. You debated having some kind of intervention about their friction, but you weren't sure you could pull it off the way you could actually improve the situation. You can clean this later. Let's play something. Sure. Scott blurted out in agreement instantly. If Jude had asked him to do a Blackfoot for his entertainment, Scott probably would have done it in that moment.
Alright.
Cool. Want to join? He tilted his head your way, waved your hands back and forth. Thanks, but I'm gonna go to my room. The two had spent the entire day with other people. You weren't going to get in the way of them having some quality couple time in the final hour. Alright. Jude gave you a half shrug, half smile. He was on to what you were doing. Have a good night, Luna. Good night. As your hosts retired for the day, happier than they had been since you first showed up, it was a relief. You made your way to the guest room. The rest of the night would be yours. Called Cove to finally let him know the situation. Cove was going to be at the wedding as a normal guest. He couldn't make it sooner to join the party planning committee. To be fair, he did arrive earlier at your mom's anniversary at the last time you both had visited the area. It was your turn to go before him. But after what happened that day, you could use a conversation with someone who'd be happy to hear from you. While waiting for him to answer, you wondered what he would have done if he had been there to see Baxter himself. You got the feeling he would have made quite the scene. That line of thought was cut off by the phone line being picked up.
Hey!
Hey, Cove. It's good to see you. Hey, Luna. Hearing that familiar voice brought a smile to your face immediately. Cove was one constant one you can count on. How are you? Is everything going to be okay with the wedding? It was hard to say what counted as okay given the extent circumstance of the planning, but that wasn't the topic you called to explain. You came right out with the shock of the century. Jude and Scott's wedding planner was Baxter's ward. Baxter Ward. Wait. Cove rolled the name over his tongue, catching the recognizable way it flowed. He said it before, but where and why? You gave him seconds. That guy? You got it. Yes, that guy.
Seriously?
He's just there? Yes. What are you gonna do? There was a panic in his reaction. Of course he'd be nervous. Though this was about the worst possible time for that guy to materialize from the ether. I'm gonna see how it goes. That little noise didn't sound convinced, but he made an attempt to reassure you and himself.
It's okay.
I'll be there soon, and you got Terry and Miranda. Whatever Baxter does, I won't change that. Thanks, Cove, though you didn't need to worry so much. You could hear the gentle smile in Cove's voice. If you closed your eyes, you could convince himself he was there by your side already. Okay. After the dust settled from that bomb, you two spent time chatting on other matters. But all too soon, you had left the conversation end on the promise of seeing each other soon grown up. Getting even a brief chance to speak with Cove was heartening. Everything was done, for the moment anyways. You finally had space to think about something other than wedding worries or Baxter bothers, or at least for a little while. Some time just to yourself was well deserved, and managed to enjoy your relaxation before slipping off to bed. Then, all of a sudden, it was morning, and you were off to the proper second meeting with the planner. Everyone once again gathered in Baxter's office, waiting for him to arrive, and in turn, Jude and Scott were tense. The closer the wedding got, the further they were from gaining any semblance of peace. No matter how much they tried to unwind outside of the meetings, the moment they returned to the chic office, their discomfort skyrocketed. The way Scott's fingers were fidgeting in his lap, you could almost believe that he was anxiously twisting the tension in the air. Miranda frowned, unable to describe the worsening creases in her brother's brow.
So...
Hey, this reminds me of Baxter's. From before, anyways. She didn't elaborate for those not there before, and the awkward silence sent Terry into a fit of laughter. He pointed to at the strip.
Yeah!
So true. It's literally the first Baxter-like thing I've seen. What about his business cards? His car is black and white, to no one's surprise.
Ooh!
Oh, you got a point for that, Luna. Terry's at a 0.
Ooh!
Since when was this a competition? Since I awarded points. Terry nodded and his mouth pressed into a hard line. The three of you only lasted a few seconds before bursting into giggles at the silliness of the situation. Randy looked at her brother and Scott, noticing the lack of input on the subject. She knew that they would need a little context to join in on the joke, but neither of them acknowledged her presence. The couple was too absorbed with their own worries and their stony expressions to crack from her icebreaker. She folded her hands neatly in her lap and made no further attempts to chat. You and Terry shared a knowing glass and decided to also stay quiet. Jude and Scott weren't in the mood. Shortly after, there was a knock on the door. Everyone snapped out of their thought bubbles and swiveled toward each other instead of moving to answer it. Well? The door opened and Baxter cheerfully stepped into his office. His notepad was already open to a fresh page.
Nice to see you.
Good morning and welcome back. Thank you for waiting. A round of wonderful greetings bubbled up from the planning party committee while Baxter moved through the room. He promptly sat on the rolling chair opposite the couch and clicked his pen out. Now that we're all here, we should begin. Let's go over where things stand and determine how to proceed next. Scott sat up straight on the purple couch and stiffly nodded. Jude, in contrast, slouched further into the cushion. Alright?
Uh-huh.
So, yesterday an order was put in for your wedding cake. I can assure you it will be ready on the day of the ceremony.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Of course.
Baxter carefully placed his pen to the notepad. Expression grew more serious all of a sudden. Speaking of the cake, I must give a small disclaimer. There's a tradition called cake smashing. I'm not sure if either of you are familiar with that. It means one or both party members of the wedding couple slather cake into the face of their partner. I strongly suggest that you decide beforehand if either will participate and to what degree of messiness. I cannot simply tell you how easy it is to sour their entire day by accidentally crossing a simple boundary line. There is a sad history of partners who find ignoring their wishes of their husband, wife, or spouse to be funny and realize far too late that it's absolutely not. Alarmed, Jude and Scott stared at Baxter, who was certain that neither had considered any of those possibilities. Do you want
No.
No, I don't. Do you?
No.
No way. Then can we not do it at all? Do we have that option? Certainly. You don't have to include any tradition besides your own. The couple simultaneously sighed in relief. They peeked in at each other and shared an amused grin, the first time either had smiled all morning. Baxter stole a moment to jot down a note. Oh, that's certainly nice.
Glad to hear it.
I'm delighted we're all on the same page. Moving right along. You worked on guest favors and declarations, correct? Have you finished, or will you be continuing with that tasks? We're done.
What?
We're done with the guest favors, but... Scott anxiously laced his fingers and pressed his palms together in his lap. His knuckles turned white. Whenever they had anything to say about wedding plans, it became a trial of trying to avoid a disagreement. It's fine to explain what's on your mind. That's why we're all here. There's no way to compromise or find a solution if you won't even have a discussion. That is certainly true. That surprised you. Baxter's ability to confidently and kindly handle issues in this kind of setting was admirable, but completely ironic. You knew that it was on a personal level, and this was a big do as I say, not as I do kind of flag. Yeah, which is unfortunate. Swallowing thickly, the defeat in Scott's expression didn't seem dire anymore. He was willing to take on the challenge with Baxter on his side. I also wanted more decorations, specifically the main thing for the reception. We don't have that. Centerpieces? Yes, that's what I meant. We need to buy all the parts, but if we kept the design simple, then I think we'd be done before the wedding. After getting his thoughts out, Scott risked a glance at his fiancée. Jude closed his eyes tiredly and took a breath. Let's go to the store. It's got to be done today.
That'd be cool.
Awesome, cool. And I can't go without you. And I can go without you if you don't
It's
want to.
fine.
No, it's fine. I'll do it. Scott's joy vanished. Joy didn't hide an ounce of his irritation in his voice. He was forcing himself to go along with this rather than taking any true interest. He was making that fact crystal clear. Come on, Jude. She poked the side of his arm with a forceful jab, and Jude shooed her off. His frown worsened into a scowl. I already said I'll do
I
it.
understand.
I believe you're right, Scott. There will be room to pick out some materials that can be arranged into a lovely centerpiece. The process can be quite low effort and look wonderful. So I'm taking it to the shopping for decorations will be the big task for today. Scott slowly watched Jude for a few seconds before answering. He nodded slowly. Before the window of opportunity closes, is there anything that you would want to include, Jude? Anything you'd enjoy? It doesn't even have to be a typical wedding feature. There's no limits on what your own ceremony or reception could have.
No.
He folded his arm across his chest, and you wonder how deep Jude was about to dig in his heels. I don't want anything else. We're almost finished. Why add more on top of it? Randy sighed, and Terry silently bit his lip. That was a track he'd gone down before, repeatedly. It was always the same point of contention with Jude, but today, Scott was emboldened. Enough that he'd muttered his long, held-back grievance.
Why are you being like this?
If you don't think of anything to contribute, can you at least stop trying to take away what I think of? Jude's eyes snapped wide open. He swiftly put into his shock and replaced it with a distinctly unimpressed stare. I didn't take anything away from you, and I did contribute in the planning stage. We're past that, it's done. But since there's time, we could...
Come on.
We've been putting this thing together for weeks, hell, months in some ways. I've been to more parties than you, and I planned more. You need to relax. Jude went to brush back some of his curls, but his fingers tightened and dug his scalpel instead. Bewildered, his gaze flickered around the room. Scott doesn't even like parties. I don't get his issue. We have a planner now. He can figure this shit out. Why even have him if we're still going to be spending every hour before the wedding working on crap? Jude's flash of anger dimmed as quickly as it flared. He redirected his attention to Baxter apologetically. No offense, Jude. It's not your fault. None taken on my account. The pinch of Baxter's features made you think that he was fairly miffed on behalf of someone else. Continuing this trend of speaking directly to the audience, Scott offered his side of the
It's true.
Everything Jude said is true. I never planned a party, and yeah, I haven't been invited to many either, but we're the people making this one. I don't want it to be awkward embarrassments. That is certainly a fair point, and we have to be very careful on that. All of our friends and family are coming. I can't stand the idea that they would leave wondering why the hell they even came in the first place. Scott began his explanation. Sad, but the longer he spoke, the more his own frustration grew. And having a plan doesn't mean you can drop everything onto someone else. The entire plan was so we could get more done. At least that's why I wanted an expert to help. I'm not interested in half-assing it, and if Jude doesn't want to do anything else, he doesn't have to.
Aw.
But all I said against him this entire time is he should stop making me feel guilty for not giving up. Jude chuckled his own self-imposed pretense and shot back directly at Scott. You shouldn't have to do anything either. That's my whole point. But if you kept taking on stupid crafting processes, then I have to handle it some for you. But it's not needed. Nobody cares that much. I care, even if I'm the only one. Come on, that's not what I meant.
Right.
Right, Jude. It sounds like you're invested. And that was the end of their discussion. This meeting had not gone to plan, and the discomfort was reaching suffocating levels. Baxter leaned back against his chair, crossing his legs. Let's take a pause to breathe and assess what's happening here. There's nothing wrong with caring about your wedding.
But
However, if it's truly a draining experience to create a massive and important event from the ground up, that's why we have planners, so there should be an understanding for that as well. Now, as the expert here, I must ask an important question. Both Jude and Scott nodded. Their gazes became glued to Baxter, anything other than each other. Slowly, Baxter untwisted himself and leaned forward, almost lifting himself out of the seat. What are your opinions on bowling? What the hell? Bowling. It's a casual sport, popular with almost all ages.
Hold on.
Dude, he knows what bowling is. He's asking why that's your important question. You can't tell me people have been bowling at the weddings. Baxter considered that remark with a smirk. He tapped the side of his cheek twice. No one has ever done that in any of the weddings I helped plan. I wouldn't be surprised if some couple out in the world set up a game or two of lawn bowling for their guests. Or perhaps even held a reception at a bowling alley. Interesting though, that's not what I had in mind. I wish to invite the 5 of you to bowl with me. Today. Right now, preferably. My trees. Perplexed, Scott pushed his glasses up. He's at a loss for words. I'll do it. What? I said I'll do it. You would? Jude answered, confused Scott further. He gauged the room and Terry offered him a thumbs up. Fun! I love bowling. You didn't know what to do. What was even happening? Alright, you can go do that?
excellent.
Splendid. I know the perfect place. Yeah, it's a place that we went once before. And that was how you ended up at the same exact bowling alley that Baxter brought you 2 years before. You followed your friends inside, holding that revelation close to your chest. It was fairly surreal to be there again, and with Baxter too. Everything just appeared as you remembered it, even down to the shiny red seats. The almost unworldly atmosphere that seemed to be encompassing every bowling alley remained intact. It was remarkable how the lights and sounds were so different from normal day-to-day life. Before anyone could further question Baxter's planning methods into what they were even doing there, we were at the front of the line. The group scoured an alley, changed shoes, and were set to start. How about we play on teams? Mine versus yours? Jude, like always?
Sure.
Sure thing, Scott. The ends, oh yeah, because there's only like 4 people per thing, so it'd be 3v3. The ends of Jude's lips curled slightly and he pointed to his sister. Randy, you're with me. Miranda bobs her head and then gave the potential competition a once-over, and when her gaze fell on Terry, he shot his hand up. Miranda bobbed her head, then gave the potential competition a once-over. When her gaze fell on Terry, he shot his hand.
Yeah.
I want to be on Randy's team. Jude laughed, bribing the side of his neck. He let Terry sweat by, pretending to contemplate his request. Pretty please? Not much of an argument, but sure, he can mix a team. Yes! Sorry, Scott, Luna, Baxter, but she's my girlfriend. We were kind of a package deal. Scott and June are about to be married, and they're willing to go at each other in a heated battle, but whatever you say. That's them. I'm different. You're a couple. Yep, we are. We've been the whole time. Don't tell me you didn't know. Aww. Terry gave Baxter a smug jab at his elbow. Well, I didn't want to presume anything. Still, hallelujah. I hope it had worked out for you. He pressed his palm against his heart and let out sincere relief. Terry wasn't so self-impressive.
Welcome.
What does that mean?
Oh?
Was the romantic tension you had towards Miranda meant to be a secret? It felt fairly obvious from the few occasions we interacted. That's preposterous. I never said a word back then. Come on, Terry, you were downright weren't simple about it. You too? I am sorry to burst your proverbial bubble, though I'm glad I wasn't the only one who noticed. Terry buried his face in his hands and groaned. He plainly wanted out of the conversation immediately. Miranda bumped him with her hip and giggled. We've been each other's favorites for a long time. The sweet moment pulled Terry out of his embarrassment and wiped away the worries from his expression. Baxter cleared his
I apologize.
I apologize for the distraction. The distraction from the secondary distraction he was already orchestrated. What if he...
Yeah.
It's cool. Like you said, it all worked out. That's what counts for me. Energized, Harry punched a fist into the opposite palm. He nodded toward the alley. Right now, I'm ready to roll. Got our teams? You can start some, if you don't mind, Luna. Team is perfect.
Yes!
Yeah, it is. Miranda eagerly smiled at your mark, and Terry alternately smirked. We'll let the scores speak for themselves. How are you deciding who's going first? Rock, paper, scissors? A classic, one that I rarely win, though I only choose rock. Oh yeah, you seen that firsthand when Lee invited you on a boating trip. He was a man with convictions, rock-based convictions.
Okay. Very well.
Regardless, since Jude got to pick the one who was on his team, I believe it to be fair if Scott's team take their turn first. Jude shrugged smugly at the suggestion. He gestured toward the colorful bowling balls. Go ahead, it's not going to make a difference.
He's right.
Scott calmly readjusted his glasses and then smirked. He pointed at his husband to me. Jude's going to lose no matter what steps up to, no matter when he steps up to the alley. Jude snorted. His competition nature burned brightly in his unmistakable expression. Bring it on, Gran. You're about to get your government funding revoked. Scott mouthed wobbly slightly at the sound of his own nickname, but he was determined to keep his game face on. Squatting his shoulders, he went straight for the rack and stuck to his ball. Scott went for a medium option. He picked it up and set down an alley with a large curve. Unfortunately, the ball barely managed to bring down 2 pins. His confidence hadn't faltered, though you caught him mumbling under his breath. No, just try again. The bowling ball rolled on back and Scott brought it to the starting line. And on this round, he managed to put a special oof into his swing. The pins scattered in all directions. It would have been an easy strike if it had been his first throw, but it wasn't. Your team opened with the
Okay.
You can go next, Luna. Roger that. Standing up, you confidently strode to the selection of bowling balls, weighing your options. You stuck with medium. Good old reliable. The feel was what you're used to. Why mess with it? Fit. Moving with precision, you took position. With a single swing, you let it go, and... Your skills were as sharp as ever. It was perfect. The ball masterfully flew down the alley and swerved into a strike. Scott excitedly threw his arms in the air and cheered.
Whoa!
Incredible! Thanks. I'm gonna do my best to try and keep it up. Win or lose, I'm betting on you for the best individual score. Last up for your crew was a wild card. The person any of you were least expected to be here, yet he was the only reason you were there to begin with. Your paths crossed while you were returning to the sitting area, and Baxter was getting to select his ball. He briefly tilted his head in our direction. I think this team is perfect as well. The sound of his voice stopped you dead in your tracks. He looked over your shoulder, but he had to continue on his path. Shaking your head, he would secure your seat and watch what he did next. Baxter brushed his fingers along the rack of shiny weighted spheres. His hand stopped on the white ball, the heaviest size. He selected it, not without a subtle smirk. He strode up to the alley just fine with that. Biting your bottom lip, you tried to swallow that. You knew under the surface Baxter was ecstatic with his showing, especially after his inability to use it in the past. Baxter didn't waste time messing around. He hefted the ball in an arc and sent it straight off. He managed to topple 7 pins with the first throw and scored a spare on the second.
Not bad.
I'll accept that. He pivoted to the group and dipped his head good-naturedly after his performance. Jude stood up and clapped politely. Alright, it's our turn now. The opposing team started off with their ringleader Jude. He matched his fiancé and got a spare. In his case, he managed almost every pin in the first try and sealed the deal on the seconds. Terry bounced over and scored a spectacular strike like it was nothing. He met your eyes and grinned. In terms of one-on-one, he showed himself as a real competition. Finally, it was Randa's round. Drew grabbed one of the heavier balls and boldly skipped into the alley end. What she did couldn't be classified as a throw, but a gentle nudge. The ball scooted right into the gutter. There wasn't even enough momentum to even reach the pins. Everyone in the group gawked in her disbelief. Jude's jaw in particular hit the floor. Randy, what was that? Oops, I don't know. She spun on her heels and heard a quarrel and fox in his head. Jude ran a hand down his tense face. He knew what kind of mischief his sister was cooking.
Really?
You're throwing the game for me. My own sister. How could you betray me? No, it was an accident. Charlie. Randa couldn't stop a single giggle and fluttered to her seat. She sweetly folded her hands into her lap. Damn. Jude sighed and bared down on her with all of his big brotherly disappointment. His demeanor was sour enough to spoil Miranda's sugar-coated smile. Like a traitor revealed, her true, twisted intentions were revealed. I'm with Rank on this one. Love you, Randy.
Thanks.
Love you too, Luna. She held her hands up in the shape of a heart and beams. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. I'm not I get it, neither is Jude. Go ahead and try.
So?
Okay, this team if I have to. Chuckling, Scott to his feet and pushed his sleeves up to his elbows and used his turn. Good luck, you're gonna need it, so am I. Round after round, Miranda found even worse ways to send her bowling ball across the aisle. It was impressive, and your whole team reaped their benefits. Jude gave it his all, and Terry did what he could to buy up the points with strikes, but their efforts weren't enough. At the end of the game, you, Scott, Baxter, and Miranda were the winners. Even though his bias of 4 versus 2, Scott was more than thrilled to claim the win. A victory is victory, and he didn't care to lose. You hooked your arms around Scott and Baxter. Go team! You tugged both of them close and laughed lightheartedly. Scott nearly tripped over his own feet, but he was happy too, with the team's victory to care. Baxter squeezed his eyelids shut and leaned to your touch. He didn't return.
You are incredible.
Fantastic work, everyone. He sighed happily in response, and he felt the soft ends of Baxter's hair brush against the side of his cheek. He opened his eyes and then held his breath. Baxter untangled himself from your orbit and stepped back to once more polite distance. That was the first time he had been physically affectionate in years, and it happened so easily. Your body had moved on autopilot. For a split second, you were 18, sharing a special summer with the boldly confident, bizarrely dressed boy renting the condo up the street. I told you were gonna lose. Scott punctuated his teasing with a breath laughed. Bending over, he planted his palms against his knees and rocked at his feet. Jude attempted to frown, but the redder his fiancé became, the more his own smile grew affectionately. Yeah, tough guy, you win. Don't pass out. Aww. Chuckling, Scott stood straight forward and removed his glasses. He wiped an eye with the side of his wrist and began cleaning the lenses with the bottom of his shirt.
Good call.
Despite the totally stacked odds, it was fun. Wouldn't have wanted it any other way. From the precious way Jude watched his husband-to-be, you got the impression that Jude probably agreed to Scott deserved to win today. He glanced away suddenly, deciding not to intrude any further on the couple's private moments. It was a comfort to see the couple in better spirits, even with all the disagreements over the wedding details. He knew that at the end of the day, Jude and Scott truly loved each other. Peeking at Baxter, you caught the genuinely pleased smile softening his expression. Watching the couple reconnect was his mood.
Well,
since we're already here and it's nearly lunch, how about we grab something to eat? Yeah? Wanna grab food at the bowling alley? That went against Scott's whole view of the classy planner. To be fair, we're surprised to see you too, and you knew him better. Yes, I don't see why not.
yeah.
Let's go with me. How bad could it be? Let's do it. Scott focused on flickering between the siblings, his brow raised in contrast to the easygoing
Yeah.
folks. Sure, we'll eat here. Terry snorted and folded his arms across his chest. He didn't share Scott's qualms about that.
Sorry.
I'll bite. So, Baxter, I gotta know why you want to eat at a run-of-the-mill place like this. Immediately, the corner of Scott's mouth curled triumphantly. He soaked in the validation that he wasn't the only one thinking things felt off. Do they secretly have an unquestionably good cook back there? You can tell me. Baxter's nose wrinkled at Terry's interrogation. He combed the tips of his fingers through the swoops of his bangs.
You know.
I'm not a nobleman, if you weren't aware. I eat food the same as everyone else, and I'm perfectly happy to explore the convenient meal option directly in front of us. Terry nudged his head into Miranda's direction. He didn't take his eyes off Baxter, though. He's evading the final question. Maybe the food really is something else here. I recall when we went bowling together, you had us get food somewhere more upscale. I believe we had a nice country club instead.
Dude.
God. Ooh. Luna coming in with the receipts. Grinning ear to ear, Jude wrapped his arms around Scott's shoulders. Miranda and Terry exchanged a knowing glance and then
Wait.
snickered. Wait, you went bowling before? When? Many years ago. You shouldn't judge my actions today based on my hate behavior.
Honestly.
19-year-old Baxter was far too high of an expectation for every hour. The person you see before you today is a humbler, dare I say even more flexible. Despite Baxter's continued insistence that he was the type of person who would definitely eat at a bowling alley, the group remained unconvinced. They squished together and watched with intrigue as he approached the counter and actually put in an order. Baxter selected a veggie burger, which invoked several murmurs of approval from your friends. Of all the options, that appeared to be the most fitting for a fancy wedding playroom. He stepped away from the customer and your friends quickly and fell in line picking out their own lunches. Jude ordered a chili dog, Scott got a hamburger, Terry picked a slice of cheese pizza, and Miranda asked for the same. Plus, a big plate of nachos were for anyone who wanted to split. Before you knew it, it was your turn at the corner, and you decided to go with... I saw tater tots. I'm gonna go for tater tots. I want a grilled cheese or pizza. Grilled cheese. French fries. That was it. The corner of Terry's eye smile curved. Your order was a bit larger and scarier than everyone else's, but there's no harm in that after a busy morning. You simply wanted what you wanted. You found a free spot near the alleys to sit down. Terry idly drummed his fingers on the table, but you couldn't even hear the sounds. It was drowned out by the surrounding clamor. Balls crashed into pins, and the shouts of victory and defeat made it for an interesting ambience. We got a good set here. Jude and Grandkant are engaged. Me and Randy are dating. Luna and Baxter, Terry halted there. His mouth had been moving so faster than his mind. He had not reached a logical conclusion before he began to ramble. Apparently, he'd momentarily forgotten that things were strained between you and Baxter. Awkward exes? Oh, you heard about
Yep.
that. Yep. Baxter fiddling with the paper napkin in front of him. His eyes narrowed and tried to gracefully move past the touch of embarrassment.
Well,
I can't blame anyone for talking about it. That's fair. However, since everyone is aware of the story, I believe I'll go hide in shame for the next several days. He gestured flippantly at the pair couple, dropping the napkins. Scott's brows lifted. Are you serious right now?
no.
No, Scott, I am not. It is only wishful thinking. Oh. The conversation grew quiet after that. Terry had managed to score some unintentional retribution after Baxter put his dancing foot in his mouth about Terry's lifelong crush on Randy. But the awkwardness was overcome once the food came out. Everyone dug right away, except for Baxter. He took the time to meticulously cut his burger with a plastic knife, and he ate the bite-sized pieces with a fork. That action garnered a number of laughs. Baxter paid it no mind and enjoyed his meal. Partway through lunch, Mr. Ward was ever so casually took the lead in conversation. Nothing more than table chatter, of course. So, what are we intending on doing after finishing eating? Going down down to the craft store. Jude grabbed a few tortilla chips and bit onto them with a loud crunch. Humming, Baxter rested his chin on the palm of his hands. I have been giving it some thought, and I believe you may not have to. If you know what you want for the centerpieces, I could pick up the supplies and drop them off at your house later today. You could?
Absolutely.
That's not a problem.
Me too.
Right, I'll go with him to help. Yeah, me three.
In that case,
I can see where this is going. The two of you can go home and relax, and we can do the pesky shopping. The two of you are more likely worn down than you registered. My suggestion is that you should take as many breaks as you can sneak in before the wedding. As slick as ever. Craft shopping could be fun. Why not? Don't worry, between the four of us, we'll get the shopping done in a snap. Oh, well, there you have
Would that
it.
be alright?
That would be great, actually, don't you think? Jude folded his arms, surveyed in front of him. His friends, family, and wedding planner were all watching him optimistically. Finally, he cracked a smile. Yeah, thanks.
good.
Fantastic. There's a little less to worry until you return with your centerpiece.
Hold on.
Hold on. Anything else, Scott? Oh, I'm not sure. What kind of work room do we have left on the schedule? There's certainly a space for a few things. Plenty of elements that can be added with minimal effort that will have a big impact on your experience. For example, you could plan to have a first dance or have a multiple with a parent, guardian, or another important figure in your life. Rather, conveniently for this line of work I'm in, I used to ballroom dance competitively.
I can do that.
So if either of you need lessons or wish to practice, I can provide that. If it wouldn't be an additional charge, of course. My services are all inclusive. Your attention snapped in his direction. Why would he word it like that? Like he was retired. I couldn't imagine a world where Baxter didn't dance anymore. Competitive ballroom dancing? You sure you're a regular dude? Positive. Does that sound like something either of you would be interested in? The couple shared a long, silent stare. Scott bashfully rubbed the back of his neck and returned his attention to the conversation.
I don't know.
We need to think on that one some more, I think. Good call.
I get it.
That's fair. Let me know when you come to a decision. Baxter hummed quietly to himself, musing over his next thoughts. He lifted his head at a point where he wasn't bothering to hide that he returned to planner mode. Jude, you mentioned that you've thrown parties before, correct? One for my sister, his parents, cousins sometimes. Scott nodded proudly while Judge only shrugged in response. His lips curled bashfully. Got big family. But what about for yourself? Who throws parties for themselves? You are, right now, actually.
Oh,
Oh, fine, yeah. Jude scratched behind his ear, reassessing the conversation. Baxter smiled admiringly. Perhaps you bring this too much as a party for some undefined mass and the demands of the social pressures and such. And Scott, you're saying this as purely as there for the guests to judge, when in reality the wedding is a day solely for you and your husbands. My next recommendation is that you do nothing more for the wedding unless it's truly going to improve your own memories of the event. That... You're right.
I'm sorry.
Jude, I'm sorry for making both of us do so much so fast. It sucked. Hey, wasn't that bad? Jude took Scott's hand and held it between his own. He wore an easy smile and lightly brushed his thumb across his fiancée's skin. If you still want the centerpieces, we should do it. I do. Well, I kind of have a vision for the event. Jude's face held back and he let out an affectionate laugh that had a...
yeah?
You do, huh? You knew you would get a kick out of designing venue spaces. Next birthday, you're on deck for decorations.
That'd be cool.
Oh, see, that'd be cool. Jude gave his fiancée a light squeeze and then returned to the main conversation. Scott shifted his attention to Baxter in turn. I'll text you the shopping list.
That's wonderful.
And Scott glanced at Jude and began chewing the inside of his cheek. He didn't even have to say it. Clearly, he had one more idea. What? I thought for something else recently. Remember that you went to the limo for your twin sisters on their 18th birthday? Sure.
Well,
there's sort of a thing where people are getting married and arrive and leave in fancy cars, so I was thinking, what if we do that for our wedding too? Something like the classy Corvette, maybe? Jude's eyes widened in awe. That suggestion hit the nail on his curly head.
Seriously?
That. I want to do that. I'll call around and see if I can get that sorted today. Hell yeah.
My pleasure.
It's my pleasure. The couple beamed at each other. Jude gently cupped the side of his fiance's face, and Scott leaned into the touch. Thank you for thinking that. Probably could have thought of that yourself if I hadn't given you 1,000 other things to worry about. I doubt it. I'm a crappy wedding planner. Besides, sounds like to me you're talking about yourself. I am.
Mm-hmm.
You've been so busy that you haven't even told Baxter about something important. We still got a schedule for the ceremony. Stunned, Scott searched for a shred of what Jude was talking about. Nothing could be grasped in his panic state. Jude decided to let him off the hook. He wanted to have a candle lighting ritual.
Perfect.
That's a delightful idea. We already have the candle for it. We just gotta make sure it doesn't get skipped. That was something we wanted for both of us.
That's true.
Yeah, Jude's right on all accounts. I can't believe I forgot about that. Could you make sure the officiator doesn't forget? Absolutely, that's what I'm here for. And so you finally finished the day's intended discussions in a far livelier atmosphere than how it was at the office. Both Jude and Scott had an easier time with the process of vocalizing their thoughts when they were shooting the breeze than they did under a more professional interview. Boxer's improved party playing skills were impressive. He had grown leaps and bounds. Even Terry and Miranda were pleased with how this meeting went. Against all odds, Baxter proved within a matter of days that he was someone that they could rely on for this wedding. Once the centerpiece details were exchanged, the group split into teams. Jude and Scott went off to their home, and the remaining 4 of you hit the road and went to the craft store. Although technically you could have all squeezed into Terry's van, Baxter unlocked his car with a beep. After confirming the location you were going to, he followed behind in his own vehicle. Once he arrived, he waited near the front of the craft store. So, with that, I'm going to end this episode here. I hope you guys have a good day, night, week, month of your lives, and may the stars forever guide your path wherever they might lead you into the future, and hope to see you guys again soon.